Hey, this is Dennis. It's Thursday. I want to get back in the Word. We're in the book of Mark, chapter 11. We're going to start with verse 11. And Jesus entered into Jerusalem and into the temple. So he goes in Jerusalem and walks up in the temple. And when he had looked round about upon all things, he looked all over the temple. And now the evening tide was coming, it was getting late. He went out unto Bethany with the 12. And on the morrow, the next day, when they were come from Bethany, he was hungry. And seeing a fig tree afar off, having leaves, he came, if happily, he was, well, to me, he was happily hoping there was some fruit on it, some figs. He might find anything thereon to eat. And when he had come to it, he found nothing but leaves, for the time of figs was not yet. And Jesus answered and said unto it, Jesus talked to the fig tree. And that's interesting. I mean, Jesus looked and talked to the fig tree. And he said, no man eat upon thee hereafter forever. So basically he was saying, you're not going to bear any more fruit forever and ever. You're done with it. And his disciples heard it. And when they come to Jerusalem, Jesus went into the temple and began to cast out them that sold and bought in the temple, and overthrew the tables of the money changers, and the seats of them that sold doves. So he was turning over the tables and the seats. And he began to cast them out that were doing this. It would not suffer that any man should carry any vessel through the temple. And my first thought, why wouldn't they let anybody carry a vessel? I would imagine they were putting all their money in it. These vessels full of money. And he taught, saying to them, he said, is it not written, my house should be called of all nations a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of thieves. And the scribes and the chief priests heard it, and sought how they might destroy him, for they feared him. So here's your preachers at the time, plotting how to kill Jesus. They were scared to death of him, because all the people were astonished at his doctrines. And when even was come, he went out of the city. One thing I want to look at here is Jesus running these people out of the church. And Jesus said, y'all made it a den of thieves. It's supposed to be a house of prayer, and y'all have made it a den of thieves, buying and selling in the church. So I want to ask y'all, is it a sin to buy and sell in the church? You know, since I started going back to church 19 years ago, I've gone to a couple churches that they're buying and selling inside the church. It pissed Jesus off. And one thing, it's one version of the gospel, he made a whip and was whipping them out of the church for buying and selling inside the church. I'm not judging nobody's salvation. The only thing I would say, if I was the pastor of the church, I would not be buying and selling stuff inside the church. Now, the church I go to now, there's sometimes they buy and sell inside the church. I haven't said a word to the preacher about it. Now this last time it was missionary type stuff, and they were selling stuff to finance the missionaries, but they put a tent up outside the church, and they bought and sold in that tent outside the church. But from reading this, if I was in charge, I don't think I'd let them be buying and selling inside the church. What do y'all think? Well, that's my thoughts on it. Don't get discouraged. Don't get discouraged. When I came back to the Lord 19 years ago, I made the Lord a promise. I'm not going to let nothing or nobody discourage me, because I'm going to walk with God one day at a time. I hope you do the same. God bless you. Bye-bye.